Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Joining me today is Gen Harimohan Iyer as we talk about our friendly neighbor, or rather unfriendly neighbor, Pakistan. Let's welcome General Harimohan Iyer. Namaskar, sir. How are you?
Namaskar. How are you?
Well, sir. So this is something that has been in the making for a couple of weeks at least. Finally, the time has come for us to talk about this post-Op Sindoor. How does one handle a truant Pakistan? Viewers, a truant means actually somebody who says something and does the opposite. Just so you understand, that's my understanding of truant. So Iyer will set us straight on what exactly is the thing. And right now, looks like there is a war raging between Afghanistan and Pakistan. If you have time, we'll touch upon that also. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you. Right. Firstly, I'll put up a little background to my talk today because I need to put a foundation for my hypothesis.
Yes.
And the background for my talk starts from 1947, when the two nations happened. You must understand why these two nations, why there was a two-nation theory which happened, or why there was partition of India. The population which demanded an independent nation was those elements or part of that kind of religious-based organization, which felt that they will be not able to find themselves working under a majority which is not their own religion. So they identified their own existence in terms of a religion. And that is how India and Pakistan got formed. So the eastern Bengal became East Pakistan, and the western Punjab, along with the areas to the north and south of it and west of it, became West Pakistan. Can you imagine two chunks of land separated by a huge Indian landmass? They agreed to that as Pakistan. Because in my mind, I feel that somewhere they had in the back of the mind, and that is what is felt when you speak or you discuss with any Pakistani or you read any Pakistani, what they call as 𝙒𝙧𝙤𝙪𝙥𝙥. They have a firm belief that someday the Muslim rule will re-emerge in Delhi. And this is something which hurts Pakistanis, because the Pakistan which they had demanded and the Pakistan which they finally got was entirely different. And this is the basis of my hypothesis. So when I look at an average Indian today, you go and speak to any average Indian, 60-70% of the people will not be bothered what is happening in Pakistan. There are better worries within the country. But when you go on the other side, 80% of Pakistan at least, and I am putting a conservative figure here, at least 80% of people in Pakistan will be more bothered about what is happening in India. Just a couple of days back, there was a World Cup cricket match which India lost. And if you had gone on the YouTube, Pakistan was celebrating as if it was Eid. India losing to South Africa was celebrated in Pakistan as Eid. So when I say truant Pakistan, the basic makeup of people in Pakistan is anti-India. And unfortunately, I may be politically incorrect when I say that, but they don't believe in a secular India as a neighbor. And their basic ingrained philosophy in Pakistanis is to establish a Islamic state in India. And that is drilled into every Pakistani child when is born. It's there in their education. Every Indian is called a kafir, non-believer. And that is why they will never get into a system of having an amicable settlement with India ever. And this is my belief that Kashmir is just an excuse to keep this anti-Indianism going. Believe you me, if by some chance there is a settlement on Kashmir, they will rake up something else. And what they did in 80s when they raked up Punjab was just an example of that. They are a country which believes that they cannot accept India in its current form. So that is the first aspect. The second aspect is, what is Pakistan all about? Here is a nation which lives continuously in fantasy. And I say that with a lot of conviction. In 1948, post-independence, Pakistan, through non-regular forces, backed by some degree of regular forces, launched a military operation into Kashmir. And it was not against India. It was against the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, because Jammu and Kashmir had yet not ceded itself into India. So when the king of Kashmir, Raja Hari Singh, sought India's help, India asked for it to first sign the letter of accession, because India would only respond to an attack on its own sovereign soil. And post the signature, that is when Indian troops landed in Kashmir, that famous Srinagar landing. And when the Indian troops landed in Kashmir, the Pakistani regulars and non-regulars were at the doorstep of Srinagar. They were having huge amount of gains in the areas of Poonch, Rajouri and Naushera. And thereafter there was a very focused campaign by Indian armed forces to evict Pakistan out of the occupied Kashmir. And we managed to push them out till beyond Uri in the north and beyond Poonch in the south. And believe you me, if the operation had continued for, let's say, another month or two, we would have very much pushed Pakistan beyond the international boundary as it existed pre-1948. But for reasons best known to the dispensation at that time, possibly we were also a very young nation, just a year old. We were also not so confident about our economic standing, etc. I granted to the dispensation at that time. They felt it right to take this dispute to the United Nations. And we all know what happened in the United Nations. There was a resolution. Till today, Pakistan claims that resolution as a victory for themselves, because they conveniently only emphasize on the last part of that resolution which talked about a plebiscite, but they forget about the first two steps, which meant vacation and hand over the complete territory to the Indian Army. But every Pakistani feels that 1948 was a huge victory, and what happened in the UN is supposed to be testament to it. The next 20 odd years went around. In 1965, they tried this adventure again in an operation called Operation Grand Slam, almost similar to what happened in 1948. But this time they opened up the border, the IB sector. They got a bloody nose. They lost territory even in Jammu and Kashmir. They went to Tashkent, negotiated. I don't know what happened in Tashkent. The negotiations did not go the way India or a winning side deserved to. I've been saying it in this program earlier. We were at the doorsteps of Lahore when the ceasefire was called. There are photographs to prove we are on the outskirts of Lahore. We had destroyed a huge amount of Pakistani armor, literally blunted him. They had got huge amount of defeats in Kashmir also. But yet you go and speak to any Pakistani, he'll claim 1965 was a great victory. This Lahori चूरन which people say, ये खिलाते हैं जाके अपने पब्लिक को कि हमने जंग जीत ली है. 6 years later, they fought another war in 1971. They lost half the nation. a humongous surrender of 93,000 prisoners of war. But yet, they had a minor victory in a place called 𝗏𝗏. And they celebrated as victory in 1971. They feel that they went to the negotiating table in Shimla in 1972 from a position of strength, got back their complete POWs and all captured territory back. And they did not yield back 𝗏 because it was in the disputed areas. So ask another common Pakistani, he'll say 1971 की जंग हम शायद थोड़ा कम जीते, but जीते जरूर. भुट्टो साहब ने हमें ये जंग जिता दी. That's how they paint it out. 1999, Kargil. They took a bloody nose, refused to collect their own bodies. But yet, it is shown, other day also I saw some kind of a picture going around in social media showing their chief of army staff visiting those troops which had infiltrated inside India, which they played up as mujahideens. But they still don't accept defeat there. They said, we tried something, but we finally managed to achieve a degree of supremacy of the Indian Army. Why am I putting all this together? Here is a country whose basic existence is anti-India. They feel they have an armed force which is excused every blunder that they can commit. Chori, Dhaka, Khoon, anything they can do, Pak Fauj is supposed to be the ultimate. And that is a kind of trust an average Pakistani puts on its Fauj. So till such time Pakistani Fauj continues to enjoy that kind of a reputation in the nation, Pakistan will never come to heels. You can see what happened when in this World Cup, they tried to scheme with Bangladesh to try and scuttle this Indian hosting of this tournament. So they will not stop at anything. The entire spectrum is wide at which they will try anti-Indianism going anywhere. And for this, they are prepared to do anything. They are prepared to lick anybody's boots. Again, it is very much visible the way their two shining stars are, shining boots world over with their tongues. It's there on the social media for people to see. So, biggest problem for India today is how do you bring this nasty nation, which will be a thorn for life. It will be that nail in your shoe, which will keep popping up once in a while to hurt your feet, irrespective of whatever you do with it. You may try to, hammer that nail out, it will pop up again. And that is the essence of what I would like to bring out. I put a presentation, Shriji, can you put the first slide on, please? Yeah. So this is how I see Pakistan. So if you look at the Indus River, which is flowing from the northeast to the southwest, it almost transits the entire length of Pakistan. When I say Pakistan, I am also including Pakistan occupied Kashmir, including the northern areas which are Indian territory in an illegal occupation of Pakistan. So the Indus takes a turn from east to west, thereafter flows from northeast to southwest right across the center of Pakistan. The other river which is visible, it's marked over there, called Satluj. Satluj enters Pakistan where Punjab ends in India and goes and joins Indus at a place called Sakka. That is also visible on the map very clearly. So if I were to draw a horizontal line along Indus, please visualize this, a horizontal line along Indus. a horizontal line along the place where Indus joins Satluj, and a vertical line following Indus. It will divide Pakistan into 5 regions, which are marked by me over there. Yeah. So what you see is 3 is Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Let's start from number 5, which is Balochistan, the most neglected area of Pakistan. It doesn't have any known resources, though people go claiming that it has got oil, rare earth, minerals, blah, blah, whatever. It does have a coastline, but that coastline is hardly usable because of rough open seas. Only Pasni and Gwadar are 2 areas where there could be some degree of shipping. Other than that, shipping comes close to the Indus at Karachi. By and large, neglected territory under insurgency. It is the most neglected territory as far as Pakistan is concerned. Go further north, you see what I've written as 4, which represent Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, or earlier it used to be called the Northwest Frontier Agency, which borders Afghanistan. It has the problem with Afghanistan, which 𝙒𝙗𝙬 was saying. We may like to discuss it later in the day if there is time. But again, this is the area which Pakistan ruined it for himself. Firstly, by neglecting it, and secondly, by creating havens for terrorists, which operated firstly inside Afghanistan and then subsequently used them as pawns to be operating inside India. Today, these very snakes are biting it, and biting it real bad. Now, coming to east of Indus, you find the region of South Punjab and Sindh, which to some extent is prosperous and has got some known resources of oil and gas. And of course, what is marked as one, which is the heartland of Pakistan, or Pakistani Punjab. You look at the water bodies, the entire concentration of rivers, canals, irrigation systems is totally concentrated in North Punjab. It is a little less concentrated in South Punjab and peters down when it enters Sindh. Areas west of the Indus has hardly got any irrigation networks. There is one river which enters from Afghanistan, but that too doesn't have too much of water in it. So all in all, entire Pakistan depends on the water of Indus and its tributaries, which enter Pakistan through various places from India. And therefore, my hypothesis goes to say that this is where the key lies. Okay, you can take off the slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Sri, you can take off the slide.
Yeah, I am. My mouse is not listening to me. 1 second.
Okay. Okay, I'll continue. Right.
Yes, please continue, sir. I'll get it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So let's go back to what happened last
My
year.
mouse is on strike today. I don't know why.
There's some lag in your in your speech also. I don't know. Could be some. I didn't know USA has also got internet problems. I thought it was India only where you have
I
this.
should not complain, sir. I have 1 gigabit connectivity. It's just a means. It shows up only when I run the test. Other times it's very, very less. Over to you, sir. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So, we were on, I just explained what Pakistan is all about. There is huge amount of neglect of a large portion of Pakistan, and there is huge undercurrent of dissatisfaction in populace. You have, in the 75 odd years that they have been in existence, 2/3 of the time the military has directly ruled Pakistan. And the balance 1/3 of the time it has indirectly ruled Pakistan. Even currently, we all know what the Pakistani politics is capable of doing on its own. It has to seek the approval of the military to say yes or no to any proposal. So like I said, 7.5 decades, it's the military which calls the shots. It will decide who should be the politician who should run the country. It will tell the Senate as to how and what bills to be passed in what manner. It even controls their legal system to decide what kind of decisions have to be given by the courts. It's very evident when you see a popular elected government having denied the opportunity to be running the country. The leader of that party is in, and he's not a small man. He's the guy who brought a lot of pride to Pakistan, has put the country on the world map by winning a World Cup. He's a very popular man, but yet brazenly he's been kept behind bars now for almost 2 years. I have been saying this earlier also, and I'll re-emphasize, Pakistan military is not just the Army, Navy and Air Force. When I say Pakistan military, it starts from the Home Guard, who's working in villages, their police, their paramilitary, any other militia which is capable of keeping law and order, etc., also looking after the rear areas, and the organized military. And the Pakistani commanders, especially the corps commanders, they have full lien on the way administration happens in Pakistan. If you recollect, a couple of years ago, there were riots in Lahore, and one of the corps commanders' house was raided. If you had followed up that, within maybe 3 to 4 weeks, the corps commander was removed from command, because Pakistan military cannot accept that any person in Pakistan military uniform is shown in poor light. The military controls the economy, it controls the politics, it controls the diplomacy. I think I have mentioned it in this program, or maybe I'll mention it once again. About 15 odd years ago, I was in Wellington when the ambassador from Pakistan had come to give us a talk on Indo-Pakistan relations. That was just before the Bombay attack, 2007. And there was this Brigadier Saab who wanted to sit on the stage initially. But when he was told that you can't sit on the stage, he sat in a prominent place in the auditorium and he was noting down everything. And the ambassador used to look at the defense attaché, who was the Brigadier Saab, and possibly seeking approval of everything he was speaking. And I've seen it with my own eyes. I worked with the Pakistani Army officers when I was part of the UN force, and I've seen the way they used to communicate back home, the kind of control they had in terms of the way Civil Adam responded to it. So we are talking against a country which is a rogue country. We are talking about a country which has only one aim in its charter, and they will continue to poke that aim. Long time ago, somebody asked me, again when I was in the UN, and this was post the merger of East and West Germany. So he asked me, he says, is there a possibility of India and Pakistan merging someday? I said, never. It's just not possible, because it can be only possible if Pakistan is able to capture India. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. So this line which has been drawn 7 decades ago is going to stay. Now, 7 months down the line after Op Sindoor, we are trying to find as to how do we deal with this nation. It can go to any extent to try. There were so many discussions we had, and it was proved even during Op Sindoor. If India goes to war with Pakistan, China will not collude. It may give them moral and military support, but it will not tried to use that as an opportunity to push its own agenda. And it was visible during Op Sindoor. But when we were in a kind of a situation with China, both in the east and in Ladakh, to different occasions, we saw the way Pakistan was trying to make hay while the sun shines. The reverse is always possible. They will try and instigate nation like Bangladesh to turn against India. They will try and instigate Maldives and Sri Lanka to put up resistance to Indian growth in the region. And the SARC, as I again said, I think again on this channel, this very channel, that SARC was an attempt made by 𝙒𝙬𝙬𝙗 way back to try and control India by using its neighbors. So while we are more worried about China encircling India, Pakistan has made at least 3 or 4 attempts to try and encircle and restrict Indian influence in South Asia. Okay, can I have the next slide? I have one more slide. Next one. Yeah. Now this was a slide which I made a couple of years ago. And it's a very busy slide, but what I will try and explain. And this basically talks about the kind of environment that we are living in, which is called warfare in the gray zone. When you say gray, it is neither black nor white. It's a mix. And the shade of gray increases as the level of conflict increases. And this basic graph shows about 2 things. On the right, it shows time, that is on the x-axis. And on the y-axis, it shows growing tensions. And the dotted line, which moves from left to right, indicate the level at which tensions might grow and have different degree of responses. So if you see the first level where there is coercion, it's a time when nations decide that they need to take some action on certain incidents. It could be a terrorist incident, it could be a financial related incident, it could be a political level incident, it could be a diplomatic level incident. But it possibly will lead to coercion, which is well in the white zone, and therefore should not worry us too much. It is more played in the diplomatic and the political scheme and less in the military scheme, apart from the fact that there will be some degree of posturing on both sides. But the moment you cross the red dotted line and you reach a level of show of force, you are almost entering the gray zone. The gray zone, as I look at it, initially was an area which was populated by the 2 red dotted lines. But now, post 2 events, that is the event in Doklam and Ladakh, I have added the 3rd dotted line, which is the black line on the right extreme. So as the threat increases, the aggression levels will also go up. So in this particular graph, I have placed the incident which happened in 2016 in Uri, followed by the surgical strikes which happened immediately afterwards, at the extreme edge of the gray zone. This was possibly an action which was against Indian military. It was an incident which did gather a lot of bad media and demanded a solid response, which was given in the form of a surgical strike, again within the tactical or operational levels, within the level of the armed forces. Going further, 3 years later, an incident happened in Pulwama. Though it was targeted against military, the event happened in civil area and had implications which had much larger than what happened in Uri. and therefore required a response which was much higher than how we responded against Uri. And we all know we launched airstrikes at a place called Balakot, which saw us lying inside the boundary of Pakistan. And we hit Pakistan terror camps at this place called Balakot with our own Air Force, by and large escalating the conflict levels to almost the edge. And if I was to use the connotation at that time, it was beyond what I used to call the gray zone at that time. It was an event which could have escalated into a conflict, limited or long term, very difficult to say, because it was immediately followed up by an air raid by Pakistan, a counter by India where we lost an aircraft and we had a prisoner of war, which I believe with a bit of coercion we managed to make Pakistan hand it over to us. And the situation was dissolved at that time. So it didn't escalate beyond that levels. But what happened in Pahalgam in 2025 was a brazen, unacceptable kind of incident, which demanded a response much higher level than what was there in the earlier occasions. And accordingly, India responded by launching attacks at 9 known Pakistani terror sites, named the operation as Operation Sindoor. And we did expect a response from Pakistan, which was blunted in the next 48 hours. And since Pakistan did not accept our offer to off-ramp after our initial strikes, India launched a series of deep strikes inside Pakistan, we all know about it, on May 10th, after which, on Pakistan's offer of a ceasefire was called. But I would put this particular incident at the extreme edge of the grey zone as it stands today, because we had already climbed the escalatory ladder to way beyond what is subconventional or subtactical. We had reached a level where long-range cruise missiles were applied and targeted on various Pakistani bases. We all know about it. It's there in the open domain. I will not like to talk about certain speculative areas which also got struck, whether it was by choice or by incident, I don't know. But we sent a signal not only to Pakistan but to the world that we are quite prepared to expand this escalatory ladder. And as President Trump mentioned, and he keeps changing the figures, so I'll take the last figure. He was quoting yesterday, rather I think today morning, in the State of Union address, that Pakistani Prime Minister called him and said he had a threat that he will get killed. And along with 3.5 million. So the numbers keep going every time he mentions it. But the point to remember is President Trump keeps talking about a nuclear war. India has never made a mention of using nuclear weapons. India throughout Op Sindoor never mentioned nuclear weapons. So if that be the way things are being looked at, where do we take it? Should something happen now? I know the graph has gone out, but just imagine we are at the extreme edge of what I can accept as, okay, 35 million, done, accepted. Yeah, 35 million, 3.5 crores. I correct myself. So in that kind of a scenario, where do we go next Because something which has been happening for the last 7.5 decades is not going to stop. And it's a nation which took yet another defeat. It was visible to the world order. Yesterday, the President of United States says the Prime Minister came to me and said 35 million Pakistanis' lives are at stake, including his own. They couldn't have won that conflict. Yet, when you look at Pakistani social media, they keep talking about 4-0, 5-0, 7-0 and what all. Any Pakistani spokesperson you hear, he says, पिछले साल की जंग तो हम जीत गए. What jang they won, I don't know. They did supposedly launch one missile which was shot down at Sirsa, and whatever else they launched were shot down wherever they tried to intervene into India. I don't think they could hit even a cowshed for one in that entire 3 days. Whereas we have proof of hitting not only the terror camps, which were the initial targets, we knocked off this complete air defense umbrella in the heartland of Punjab, and we managed to strike him in his depth airfields right from south to north, right across. And still he claims that he won the war. And the beauty of the whole thing is the Pakistani populace likes this Lahori Churan once again, and he continues to accept that hum jang jeet gaye. हमारे सिपा सलाह आसिम मुनीर साहब ने हमें जंग जिता दिया. So he becomes something out of nowhere. He becomes a field marshal. I don't know what campaign he launched and what he won, but he becomes a field marshal out of nowhere and claims that he won the war. It makes no difference to us because we know what we did and what we could have done had the situation escalated any further. We were ready for it. The moot point is, how do we tame this truant guy? A guy you can't trust. So whether it is Imran Khan or Nawaz Sharif or Bhutto or tomorrow somebody else, till such time the men in khaki are controlling them like puppets, how do we deal with them? And that is a problem which is live and active today. Do you want to go to war? If you go for a regular war, do you think a person like Donald Trump, who wants to take credit for every conflict that is happening in the world, is going to not jump in? If he try and resurrect certain amount of his negative polls which he is getting from last year? The question is, this is a problem, live problem with the Indian public per se. So I go back to my first slide. If you people had concentrated, you need to hit Pakistan where it hurts the most. It's heartland. So quietly, in this entire hullabaloo of Op Sindoor, there was one major decision taken by the current government, and I salute them for that, which I don't know how many dispensations over 6.5 decades before were unable to do so. There were threats right from Uri time, but last year the government finally decided to bite the bullet. Possibly it was antagonizing the World Bank and international order, which held back the government for all these years. And last year we managed to call the bluff. And I am talking about the Indus Water Treaty. Now this is what I call as a slow bomb. It is not going to start showing results tomorrow, because it needs India to generate a large amount of capacities. So before I go there, let me also put across my personal perspective of why possibly India accepted this treaty in 1960s. If you look at the way the Britishers left India, because it was a unified state of Punjab, and it was possibly Britishers' gold mine also. That is the place where the land was the most fertile. So the irrigation system which the Britishers left back was all running through Indian Punjab into Pakistani Punjab. Whereas the upper three rivers ran through Jammu and Kashmir with very limited irrigation channels. The technology to harness or set up dams in these rivers at that stage may not have been available or may have been risky. India as a young state may not have had the technology to construct these dams and hold the water. So in logical sense, it was possibly felt at that time to let this water go and let it be held by Pakistan in their plain areas, and we keep whatever assets the Britishers are left for us. And we started the projects on Bhakra, on the Satluj and Ravi and Byas, and the Bhakra, Nangal and all these projects, right up to Ranjit Sagar. And areas to the north, by and large, was left free to run into Pakistan. And the World Bank helped Pakistan harness the water at various stages inside Pakistan and flow it back into those same canal systems which were running during the British times. So without any major effort, both the countries were meeting their requirements, and this is much before the 1965 war. Please remember that. Post 1965, why this treaty was continued is something which I don't have an answer to. If I was somebody, I should say after 26/11, if the first thing that should have been, cut off was the Indus Water Treaty. We didn't have to go bomb Pakistan at all. And had we done that in this last 16 years, possibly we would have hurt their heartland more than what they could afford. So let's analyze as to what is in our favor today. So when you look at the economic situation in Pakistan, it is in distress. It is just surviving through one IMF bailout after another. One good thing which our dispensation did about a decade ago and which went under the radar was getting Pakistan put in the FATF grey list. Lasted for about 7 years. And that was good enough. I think 𝙒𝙬 Iyer has talked about it in his book somewhere, if I recollect correctly. I read in one of your books only. So, yeah. So I don't remember the name of the book, but I think I read in one of your books. Yeah. So it was a very quiet but a very telling effect. And the effects are now started to show. Many people were, ridiculing the country as to what have we achieved. These are slow processes. They take time to manifest. So today, Pakistan is under huge financial stress. They are unable to meet their balance of payments with the kind of money that they have. They are under huge debt, and they are living out of one IMF bailout to another. And had the IMF bailout not happened in June last year, Pakistan would have gone down under by now. This is a fact. But it has not changed its military capabilities or capacities. That's the second side of the story. And that is where the Pakistani psyche comes in, which means the country is prepared to eat grass, but they want to have a shining military in front. What Bhutto said when he said, I will invest in nuclear weapons, is as much applicable today as it was at that time. Which means they will sacrifice everything to keep their military shining up in front. So this current situation is live that they are under economic stress. When a country goes into economic stress, the gap between the haves and have-nots, or the stress on the haves and have-nots, increases. Because the haves try and pull out their share or share plus out of this shortage, which increases the kind of shortage on the have-nots. So it is very much visible in the way people in Balochistan are feeling the stress. They feel that Punjab is still having a cushy time, whereas they are suffering in Balochistan and Sindh. And that is possibly the reason there is an uprising. And it's not a new thing, it has been there since the inception of Pakistan, because it actually annexed the state of Balochistan as part of Pakistan on its creation. But they have not lived up to the kind of promises they made to the Balochis, and that is why there is unrest over there. So that is the second level which is available to you. And this is only going to grow, because as the waters in the water system is going to get receded by the year, as India increases capacities, the water flow will reduce. And when the water flow reduces, it is going to cause pain to Pakistan. And this pain will get transferred more to the Balochis than compared to Punjabis, because they will first hold on to what they have for themselves and release only. I believe last year Sakur Dam had almost run dry in the summers. So this year is going to be even worse, because the effect of IWT getting put in abeyance is going to be seen only after 12 months. This summer is going to be painful. And the next summer is going to be more painful. So this is going to just keep increasing. There is a problem in the northwest province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, because firstly, politically, the government which got elected is one of Imran Khan's party, and they are at loggerheads with the central government, because they feel that they were cheated. And the central government tried to deflect it by, creating some nuisance values inside Afghanistan. And as it stands, they are, into a kind of conflict with Afghanistan. So their tail, as I see, is on fire. So areas west of Indus, as it stands today, is under huge amount of distress. There is lack of money, lack of resources, and there is huge amount of insurgency and militancy. So it is a ticking time bomb over there. And the effects have also started, pilfering itself into especially the northern areas, Gilgit-Baltistan, which is north of Indus, north of Kashmir. And it's slowly coming into the area which I had marked as 3, which is Pak-occupied Kashmir, where again people are now comparing their lives, which is underdeveloped, compared to the way Kashmir has developed post-abrogation of Article 370. The last 4 years has seen huge amount of improvement, with railway line running, tunnels coming up, 24/7 availability of resources. Kashmir is only going to go, the Indian part of Kashmir is only going to grow. And this is going to create more dissatisfaction on the people who are on the other side, because they are not very happy being part of a system which is not looking after them. But for the change in demography, if the original demography had persisted in Pak-occupied Kashmir, I can bet that it would have possibly merged with the Indian Kashmir at least 20 years ago. It is the Punjabi population which has been migrated and settled in Pak-occupied Kashmir, which is currently holding the entire Kashmiris together over there. Of course, the religious base is anyway something. Pakistan, as I say, runs on 3 A's: Allah, America, and anyway. So I look at, now let's say, come to the problem at hand. That is where my hypothesis is. Is another Pulwama or Pahalgam not possible? Have we created so much of deterrence that that kind of a thing is not likely? I don't think so. It may not be frequent, but an odd incident like the one you saw in Delhi, again, I was on PGurus channel when 𝙒𝙦𝗍 Iyer mentioned, and I think we were talking about China, and this blast happened in Delhi.
Yes.
It could have possibly been another Sindoor moment for us. Thankfully, it was a contained thing and it was part of a larger shipment which we have been able to nullify. So the efforts to kind of create trouble inside India is not going to stop, because that is the only way Pak Army is going to keep its population engaged, and Pak Army is going to hold its value as the saviors of the nation. So that is a given. So we need to do two things very strongly. We need to make Pakistan feel, Pakistani public feel, that the agony that is coming on to them is due to the policies being pushed by their armed forces. We have to create the rift between the people of Pakistan and the army of Pakistan. It has already happened in Balochistan, and you read about it. The people of Balochistan are no longer prepared to go and join Pakistani army. So it is a slow process, but it will happen. And this has to be played without having expectations of very fast results. These are slow-moving medicines which needs to be, given up and wait. We should have the patience. We should also have the political stability to absorb another Pahalgam or Pulwama should it happen. Because when Pakistan Army is face against the wall, the only way it can get back to its public is by sympathy, by doing something in India. And if they are able to again go back and say, "Hum jang jeet gaye," then Lahori Churan will work again. So I did a program on Pakistan in March last year, and I'm doing it again in February this year. The kind of respect which Pakistani public had for Pak Army in February, March of last year was much lower than what it has today. Last year, Imran Khan in around Jan, Feb, March was having a huge amount of support, and there were, those long marches happening in Islamabad, Rawalpindi. Asim Munir was in a state that he was not able to even trust his own guards. I believe he used to ensure that only 7 or 8 known people were given ammunition within his own guard. That was the status before Sindoor. Even now he moves around with a bulletproof vest under his uniform. Very, very strange for a military chief to be moving around like that. But that said, today he's in a slightly better place. So what I am trying to say, and this is something which even I was mentioning last year, Op Sindoor was a great military operation. I'm very proud in the way Indian Armed Forces delivered when they were asked to deliver. Some of the things I was also involved with, some of those targets which were taken out, we were all part of them in the system some time back. So we are very proud to see, the fruits of some plants which we sowed way back, getting realized. But that having said, 10 months down the line, I'm not too happy with the way situation has panned out. So I again go back to say, you have to have patience as a nation. You have to trust your armed forces that they will achieve what they are tasked to achieve whenever they are tasked to achieve. We need to be strong as an economy. We need to have very good diplomatic connections, and that count, our Prime Minister going to Israel today is a landmark in this event. In fact, I go into social media, it is just flooded with, it's like a visit. I don't think any other leader of the world is getting that kind of a coverage. So we are quite good on those aspects. And I want our politicians, especially the people from the other side, to be with the government in issues which are of national levels. Taunting them at the stage when country is in trouble will force decisions which may or may not be a long-term favorable decision. And I see that the fuse which has been lit on the Indus Water Treaty abrogation, just wait another 3 months and see the tastes of the first little fruit of that starting to appear. And once these dams are constructed, it will take maybe 2 to 3 years. I can assure you, even if we start desilting the existing reservoirs, we can drain them dry. We can drain them dry. And if one day we decide to let go of the entire reservoir, we can drown them. And drown the heartland, which is where the entire center of gravity of Pakistan is. But as a responsible nation, I'm sure India will not resort to that kind of a thing. But it can hold its cards the way a powerful diplomacy in the world, powerful democracy in the world holds. Because ultimately, you will be respected only if you can show your power. In that context, I think I will end here saying that we have an irritant on our neighborhood. It is like a mosquito which needs to have, regular anti-mosquito treatment done, and that needs to be given in whichever form it is. I don't mind the Dhurandhar form also because that is the flavor of the day, so I'm mentioning it. But that having said, it is not one-point solution. There has to be solution at multiple levels, and I am very confident that the current dispensation, if allowed to carry on its task, has its hands on how to negotiate and carry out this task effectively. So I think I will stop here and I am ready to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. On your last observation, tortoise is good, but I really miss flit. Remember flit? Flit, F-L-I-T, flit. Remember that? You put
Absolutely.
on the mosquito. That's what we really need.
No, I have gone beyond flit. I now believe in, using those big smoke screen, this thing.
Yes.
Gas the whole thing out. Mosquitoes have to be taken out that way.
Thank you, sir. Let's take a few questions now, please. First off, I must say that was a very, very erudite presentation. It covered the entire gamut of the history of Pakistan, its existence, and its hatred for India. And one wonders why India always stops short of one step below what its populace is expecting it to do. I'll just leave it. Let's not go into the politics of it. Let's go to the questions now. Pak is also copying Op Sindoor model when tackling with Afghanistan or internal gangs, trying to portray that they are only attacking terror sites, not civilians. Question is, who believes this wolf?
No. I will start with an example. And it actually hurts me a lot because I was part of that operation which apprehended Masood Azhar long time back. I think it's almost 3 decades back, more than 3 decades back. And I didn't, part of the operation, and we didn't even know whom we were apprehending because we were too young in the ladder. So the next day, when we came back from the operation, and this guy was held up in one of our holding areas. So out of curiosity, I went to see, kisko pakda hai? What was this big catch that? And for 48 hours we were inside River Jhelum doing patrolling in that area. So it was wet and we were in miserable conditions. So we just wanted to go and see. And we saw this guy, he was inside a holding area like a, caged animal. And I was so happy that yes, we had got something big. And after the hijacking incident, when he was released, it was very hurting for me and people like me who were part of that operation. So I really wish that one of those hammer and scalp missiles which were fired at Bahawalpur had taken this guy out. I can tell you, every time I used to look at that, I have seen that masjid area of where he was. I have taken profile of that target at multiple times. And every time I used to look at the target and I used to feel, kisi din mujhe mauka milega to put a bomb inside this and knock this joker out. So please don't compare Op Sindoor with what Pakistan is doing. This is my larger point. When we engaged those 9 targets, let me tell you, those 9 targets were not taken off the cuff. Those 9 targets were well organized targets with clear intelligence of what is inside that. And it was not done one for sudden night. I was out of service for a year plus when Sindoor happened. I was out of the area where this target was being planned 3 years before Sindoor happened. And they were all part of our target list. So it is not that suddenly somebody pulled out those targets. What Pakistan is doing against Afghanistan is, Afghanistan doesn't have an air force. It doesn't have air defense. So it is trying to tell its own populace, dekho humne bhi gole dal diye. It is not comparable at all. I agree, it is only showing its public that its army is at work. And now with this gentleman calling himself Chief of Defense Force, he possibly can do whatever he wants with all the 3 services. Earlier, he possibly had a little restraint on him. That having said, they have put their hand inside a beehive. Let me assure you, this incident is going to bite them very badly in the coming months. I am very happy they've gone and done this, because their entire western borders are going to get lit in the coming days. Just wait and watch.
Next question. Pakistan fears Hexagon Defense Alliance. Your thoughts?
Pakistan fears nothing. Let me be very clear. Because Pakistan knows that it has, you must understand when Pakistan went nuclear, you know what 𝙒𝙧𝙤𝙪 announced? He said, this is the Islam bomb.
Yeah.
He says, my nuclear weapon is for the entire Islamic world. Okay. Even now, when you listen to Pakistani commentators, they claim that they are willing to, share this technology with Saudi Arabia, with Yemen, and all their so-called, people who are with them. So I don't think this Hexagonal Defense Alliance and all is going to affect the way Pakistan works. Pakistan can only be sorted out by Pakistanis themselves. And you see what happened with Bangladesh, one election, and I think we were on this program and before the election, we were speculating what will happen in Bangladesh. It's, I think, 10 days, 12 days, and you see the amount of influence they have lost. The same thing will happen inside Pakistan, please don't worry. I am very certain that this nation, and a lot of people say, when will Pakistan implode? I hope there's no question on that. If there is a question, I can take it, but otherwise I can say it's not in our interest that Pakistan implodes. A weak, tattered Pakistan is something that will be in our good, not broken Pakistan. Thank you.
Next one. How are they able to fund operations that they do?
Yeah, very interesting. Firstly, huge amount of money comes from the Muslim world. So there is money, and because they show it as their duty towards Islam. So all operations they do, they show it as duty towards Islam. And the money comes from various agencies. In fact, Pakistanis who are working abroad, they also contribute. So all this money comes, they give it. And if you look, there are so many YouTube videos, go on the YouTube, you find these travel videos where people are traveling to various parts of Pakistan, and this outside the masjid, the guy is standing, with jihad contributions. Done openly there. And people are contributing. In fact, I saw foreign tourists contributing in dollars. So they don't know what they're contributing for because it's all written in Urdu. They think it's a charity. But that charity is all going towards a cause which is funding them. And secondly, please remember, Pakistan military controls the entire ecosystem in Pakistan. So please don't get carried away by the announced defense budget. That announced defense budget is like an iceberg or floating on top of the ice, or top of the water. The amount of money which flows to them below water is something different. And the third is it gets a huge amount of aid by its own jostling in terms of the way they are playing diplomacy. So China gives them money, maybe in terms of loans, but it does give them money. UAE used to give them a lot of money, but I believe now UAE is not on the right side, they are struggling. But they manage funds both directly or indirectly. And to a large extent, they have been able to, it has dried up in periods in between, but then they are somehow been able to manage through indirect manners.
Milburn wants to know, is the deep state military industrial complex controlling it?
Absolutely. See, the aim of deep state is very clear. The aim of deep state is to destabilize. There are direct and indirect methods of destabilizing. Direct method is you dirty your own hands. Indirect method is you dirty somebody's hands. If somebody is willing to do your dirty work, and I think both Musharraf and this chap, this joker who's their foreign minister these days, I think he also went openly and said we have been doing America's dirty work. So it's very much there, and that's where the funds are coming from. So if something has to be, put on, or pressure has to be put on us or somewhere, deep state does, and it is very open.
Abraham wants to know, why is dissatisfaction brewing among Pakistani Army soldiers after the Pahalgam attack, and why are they resigning?
This is some psychological warfare, and I'll leave it at that. Pakistani soldiers are today feeling the pinch because of, and it is mostly the Baloch soldiers which are in Pakistan. You see, Pakistan Army is organized into basically 4 ethnic organizations. So they have the Punjabis, which form part of Punjab regiment, and almost all of their tank regiments. They're all people from Punjab. So you have Punjab and North Punjab. Then they have the Sindh people. Then they have the frontier force, which comes from the northern regions. And then they have the Balochis. Now the Balochi regiments, the beautiful characteristic is the entire officer lot of these Balochi regiments are Punjabis. So they may be called Baloch, but they are controlled as Punjabis. And these forces are used in areas which are non-residential for them, so that they can be kept under check. Of course, they do have something called a Northern Light Infantry and so-called Pakistan Occupied Kashmir POK forces, which comes from the regions from where they are recruited. But then they are far few. The majority of Pakistani Army is Punjabis. Definitely there is a lot of trouble brewing amongst people coming from the frontier force. There is trouble brewing because there is a section of the army which feels that they have been taken for a ride by the current dispensation and the current chief. And that is there within the officer lot of Pakistan Army, primarily because this chief has superseded a large number of people who would have otherwise got into those appointments. So then there are supporters over there who feel that this guy has cheated the system. So there is a little degree of dissatisfaction. And last, of course, the army knows who took a beating. So they personally are not very happy with the way things went, especially in Op Sindoor. And they were struggling to stay afloat when this ceasefire came around. Yeah.
Last question. Permanent reset in India's Pakistan policy sounds decisive, but what would be the primary pillars of such a policy? Specifically, how does India maintain a hardline stance?
Okay. I don't agree to a permanent reset, because permanent reset will create, permanency in the way you deal. So you have to create a reset which needs to be reviewed in a period of time, whether the reset is working or not, and modified accordingly. So we need to look at a policy which has multi-dimensions to it. So there has to be an economic dimension, a diplomatic dimension, a military dimension, and a political dimension. And we have to create all of them in a manner that they converge to a common goal. It's a very tall order because it involves a huge number of agencies to work in an aligned manner, but it is not impossible. It will be a slow process. It will have a lot of problems because everybody has agendas, everybody has ambitions, and everybody wants to be one up. Everybody has that one-upmanship, whether it's the military or the diplomacy or anywhere. So there will be slip-ups, there will be gaps. That is common in any democracy, and I think it should be acceptable. But that having said, primary aim is you should have a time-based plan as to how you bring this nation to book. I will be very happy to have a nation which is cordial with us. This, again, I'll go back to cricket. A lot of people are, screaming that Indian cricketers didn't shake hands with Pakistan. I will shake hands with the person who deserves whose hands to be shaken. And I would love to have a Pakistani who's sensible, understands his environment, lives within his own regional area, looks after himself, develops, grow along with me. If we are able to create that kind of a dispensation, it has to be a political solution. We have to ensure that a government which comes in Pakistan is amicable to us. Again, I go back to Bangladesh. Tariq Rahman was not expected to be, pro-India at all. But when the other side is Jamaat, Tariq Rahman is playing ball to you. So within 12 days, you see the way Bangladesh government deals with India has changed. So there is a possibility even in Pakistan of a dispensation which is neither PPP nor EML. It has to be a new organization, new system. It can be generated, and that is where diplomacy and political pillars have to converge. Military has to be strong to ensure that their military never gets to claim victory. We have to ensure that continuously his military is pulled down. Allow grassroots level diplomacy or democracy to come up, and possibly have a favorable situation in a nation which has been inimical to you since existence. So I'm not saying that it's a tall order. Yeah, it's definitely a tall order, but not an impossible order. It will need a huge amount of policy decisions which have to be, again, like I said, it can't be permanent decisions because dispensations will change, the situations will change, and your end set points may not be where you actually want them to be. The milestones will change. So based on the way the things are progressing with minor modifications, you can keep continuing with it.
Thank you so much, sir. A wonderful, wonderful program. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Do share this thing among like-minded people because the amount of information that has been covered today is just mind-blowing. Thank you once again, General Iyer. We'll see you very soon. Namaskar.